All right, let's go over this Unit 1 test review. Again, you'll be testing that tomorrow. And there is a re-quiz available also today until midnight. All right, so here we go. We're going to just state what sampling method was used here. So every 10th passenger, that's systematic because you randomly select the first one and then every 10th one after that. Second, you randomly choose 5 from first class and then 25 from the other passengers. So what happened was they grouped by the type of passengers, first class and other. Now, when you do that, you don't have to select the same amount from each class. Here, first class is a smaller amount of people in it, so they just selected 5 of those, and then 25 from the whole rest of the plane. So that's stratifying some of the first class, some of the rest of the passengers. All right, 30, just random 30 seat numbers out of the whole thing. That's a simple random sample. And then once they select a particular position, they survey all of those passengers sitting in those seats. That's cluster. All right, here's the question is, where is randomness happening with these particular sampling methods? So for simple random sample, I mean, the whole thing is random. You are putting all of them in a bag, shaking well, that's the randomness, and then pulling them out. Okay. For stratified, you purposefully divide the population into those homogeneous groups, like all the first class, second class, third class, or whatever. Randomization comes in, you would put that particular category in a bag, shake well, and pull out some from each strata. So that's where the randomness comes, and random from each of those strata. Cluster, now you are having them divided into miniature populations. So that's not random, okay? It could be, but it's not necessarily. Randomness comes in the cluster or clusters that you select. So once you have the subjects divided, you randomly select the cluster and then do all of the subjects. Systematic, where random comes into play, is the selection of the first subject. That first subject is randomly chosen and then every nth after that. All right, now here they had a sample of 200, which happened to have exactly 50 freshmen, 50 sophomores, 50 juniors, and 50 seniors. So do you think this was a simple random sample? And so with a simple random sample, all subjects are equally likely, and every sample of a particular mixture is equally likely. So we'd be just as likely to get 200 seniors and none of the others as it would to get 200 freshmen and none of the others. So what happens, I mean, if there was the same amount in each grade classification. So it's unlikely that with just putting all the school in the bag, shaking well, that you would pull out 50 from each grade level. So that's why I don't think it was a simple random sample. Now, it's probably stratified. They probably put all the freshmen in a bag, shake well, pulled out 50 of them. All the sophomores, shake well, pulled out them because they got 50 in each grade level. All right. Here, this was where what kind of sample was used. And I want to look carefully at the wording here. So when people logged on to this site to play games, they were asked as their question of the day to which visitors of the site were invited to answer. So when you read that, it's essentially saying people logged into the site, and in order to be able to get in there and play, they answered the question of the day. Okay, that is important. That how that was organized, because do you use emoticons when you type online? So there's 27% said they do not use emoticons. I say that do not because later down here I saw I had a typo. But anyway, so that way that they got that sample is important. It's a convenient sample, not voluntary response. And the reason it's convenience is because it was convenient because people were logging in already to go to that game channel, okay, that game site. But those people might not be like all people. Okay, these are tech savvy people who are already going online, who, you know, may be more likely or less likely, whatever the case may be, to use the emoticons. They are not like everybody. Now, it is not voluntary response, and here's why. Voluntary response means people said in their brain, "Hey, I feel strongly about that topic. I want to make sure everybody knows that I'm using emoticons or whatever. So I want to go to that site so I can voice my opinion about that topic." That is not what's happening here. They just happen to be going to that site and happen to answer that question. If people go to that site with the purpose of voicing their opinion on a topic they are choosing to take action on, that's voluntary response. All right. How much confidence do you have in their results? And I don't have much. I wouldn't trust those results being a good representation of all people's usage because, these are people who are technologically savvy. Maybe they are already more prone to use emoticons or not, whichever. Okay. So, no. All right. Now, I really didn't like these questions very much. If I was to write this assignment over again, I probably would change these. These problem 5 and 6 aren't very good problems, and I'd probably change it, but let's take a look at them. Examine these for possible bias. They weren't real clear, so I just kind of had some thoughts on it. If this was on a quiz or a test, I would definitely make it more obvious that um, your opinion was being swayed, or because of the way they asked the questions, you were more likely to answer in one way or the other. That's what you're looking for. If because the way the question's asked, are you more likely to answer, are the subjects more likely to answer one way or the other? Okay. So on this one, should school age children have to pass the high stakes test? So those are the keys that I think are probably making this a little biased. First of all, having to implies being forced to, and that's kind of an undesirable thing. And it's high stakes, so that's telling the people with this one test, it's high stakes. Poor little old school age elementary children are having to have their fate revealed by the course of one test. Okay, so people are probably going to be more likely to answer no based on the way this question was worded. Now, same kind of question next probably lends people to say yes to the same kind of question, because if we're wanting them to be held accountable for their yearly learning goals, we want to make sure everybody's staying right there where they need to be staying. So that phrase of held accountable for their yearly learning goals is probably going to sway people to more respond to yes to the question. Um, but otherwise, it might not have much bias there anyway. Those are not real obvious. All right. Next, this question asks about the yellow pages. Do you even know what the yellow pages are anymore? So again, I'd probably change this question. Look, I looked it up to give you a definition for your information down here. The yellow pages and the white pages are a phone directory for landlines, not cell phones numbers. The main difference between the white pages and the yellow pages, there were white pages and yellow pages. Yellow pages are used for business phone numbers only, and businesses didn't have to pay to be in there. It was just a listing, an alphabetical list of, they would actually, yellow pages were organized by the type of service that they did. So you would say, like, doctors, and then you would go to medical or doctors, and then it would have that information in there, in that little section. Um, so anyway, type of service, dogs are barking. Type of service in a geographical area, and then alphabetically. Here is what this looked like. You had your big old yellow pages. So anyway, so they wanted to know the percentage of local docs. So they call all the doctors, the offices of 50 doctors they randomly selected. So I mean, that was a simple random sample. It seems fairly easy to operate, or fairly appropriate, except for, again, my concern is the yellow pages. It's just outdated questions. So are we having undercoverage because of people not having um, landlines anymore and putting, businesses not having the landlines anymore or whatever? Next, this we want to know what percentage of local businesses anticipate hiring additional employees in the upcoming month. So then they randomly select yellow pages and call every business listed on it. So again, this is a cluster, and I could see now that I understand yellow pages a little better that you could pick out like plumbers or the page about plumbers, and then the page about the doctors and the medical people, and then the page about electricians. Okay, so I don't think this is necessarily going to be good representation of the people in the area, because it's going to be prone to whichever professional page they selected. Okay, so again, this is an outdated question that I don't think you really understand unless you understand how the yellow pages were organized and what the yellow pages are or were. All right, so next we had a company with 14 project managers, 48 foremen, and 377 laborers. So there was definitely different categories. So they were going to interview the people about their job satisfaction, if there were any possible sources of employee discontent. So are the employees not satisfied? And so do you see problems? Heck yeah, I see problems. Well, they're interviewing employees about their job satisfaction. So I think that the employees might feel as though they have that could be they feel their job is in jeopardy if they report a certain um, unhappiness, okay, or discontent with the company. All right, so they might feel pressured to answer one way or the other. All right, the sampling strategy that does this. Oh, wait, propose one that would represent simple random sample. Okay, so simple random sample, everybody's equally likely. That's where you would put all of the employees in a bag, shake well, and then pull out however many employees you wanted to sample. Now, but this next one, why do you think a simple random sample might not provide a representative opinion of the entire company? Well, because there's so much variety in the employees in each type of worker. I think that makes a big difference. There's only 14 project managers and 377 laborers. So if you put everybody in a big bag and pull out, say, 50 people, it's highly likely that they could be all laborers and not any particular, not the project managers or the foremen. All right, so propose a better sampling strategy. So I would say stratify by type of employee. Put all the project managers in a big bag, shake well, and pull out some of them. Put the foreman in a bag, shake well, pull out some of them, and put all the laborers. Now, I'd also recommend, and I don't think we've really talked about this, but I think that you could probably understand, if we selected the subjects proportionately to how much they are in the company, I think that would get a really good representation. For example, 3% of the company were project managers because I took 14 and divided it by the total company employees of 439. So 3% were project managers, 10% were foremen, and 87% laborers. So therefore, say, for example, if they took a sample of 100, then they would select 3 out of the project manager bag, 10 out of the foreman bag, and 87 out of the laborer's bag. That would then be representative of all types of the employees. All right, next. So I want to get a opinion of Aledo High School students and what they think about if academics is more important than extracurricular. Okay, so that actually matters, and we're again getting to wanting to estimate all Aledo High School students. So, do you think that putting all the first period classes in a big bag, shaking well, pulling out 3 first period classes, and then sampling those, or all, so this is a cluster, would be representative? And that answer is no, because if you know how Aledo High School classes are organized, the first period classes are heavy with electives. They might be heavy with certain kind of kids. For example, marching band is happening, or band classes are happening first period. Football is happening first period. Maybe an AP course or courses, 3 AP classes could be selected. So the bottom line is that those clusters are not mini populations, and then wouldn't be representative of all AHS students' opinions about academics. Okay. Also, keep in mind the late arrival people aren't included, so that may have an issue. So, what kind of bias is this? Well, that's definitely undercoverage. Okay. As mentioned in the earlier explanation, not all first period classes are miniature populations, so you could get an unfair representation of a heavy with electives. Those involved in electives, and they might sway their opinion one way or the other. All right. Number 9, you're trying to find out what sophomores think about the food served on campus, but a friend suggests a tell us what you think website to invite sophomores to visit the site and complete the questionnaire. Well, I hope that you understand that that's definitely going to be a voluntary response sampling, because only those sophomores with strong opinions would go make an effort and actually voice their opinion. And those are probably students going to be not happy with the food service or whatever. If they're fine with it, they're just not going to go and log in their opinion. So, this bias, of course, is then going to be your voluntary response bias, because those who feel strongly will make an effort to take it action and be part of the sample. All right. Number 10, pretty straightforward. People call in their response. That's voluntary response bias. Interviewers ask a question with statement that leads the respondents to want to answer like what the interviewer wants. Couple, response bias due to either question wording. That's probably what this was getting at. But of course, lack of privacy, could be into play there with the interview. You attempted to find out about your snorkeling place, but only found 10 people who had snorkeled. Well, that's non response. You just don't have very much collection of data to get a real representative sample of what's going on in the area. Okay. Now, how about this? You ask teenagers that show up to a movie theater what favorite current movie is for all youth. Well, it's probably going to be some type of undercoverage. I mean, it is convenient sample. Didn't ask that. It asked what type of bias. So I think you're going to be um, swayed in terms of what particular movie that theater is offering. I know not all movie theaters offer all the movies. Plus whatever is showing at that particular time of the day. If it's a kids movie, then it could be, well, anyway, if it's if you're surveying early in the evening versus really really late, whatever. Okay, so I just think that you could lend yourself to some other under coverage, not getting a good sample of all movies represented. Okie dokie. So that is your Unit 1 review. Hopefully, you are ready then for your Unit 1 test on sampling methods and bias.